Declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and future. Verse number 12. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. We are gathered today as a nation. God has plans for us. Plans are not to harm us, but plans to prosper us. Plans to heal. Plans for peace. Plans to make us the bread baskets of the world. We decree and declare that the illegal sanctions be removed by God's grace in Jesus' name. We decree that and declare that Zimbabweans will trade freely with all countries by God's grace in Jesus' name. Let illegal sanctions be removed in Jesus' name. We decree and declare that the Zimbabweans will travel freely in the mighty name of Jesus. We are not what the world says we are. We are what God says we are. We are a chosen generation, royal priesthood, peculiar nation. Our God is a God who answers our prayers. We are gathered this morning to cry illegal sanctions upon our nation. Zimbabwe, incline your right ear and at us speedily today, Lord. Thank you, Father, for all the battles you have fought on our behalf as a nation. Thank you, Father, for all the nations that are crying with us today for the removal of the illegal sanctions. Thank you for all people that are gathered here today. Bless them, encourage them. We decree and declare that nothing shall separate us from the love of Christ, our Lord. We receive divine strength to overcome tribulation, persecution, and all other challenges as a nation. Father, let every challenge in our lives presently be a stepping stone for our progress and our breakthrough. We surrender the country, lovely country of Zimbabwe, the petition against sanctions that are being done by the Europeans. And we applaud our neighboring countries for standing with us as their brothers and sisters, and we continue to remember them in our prayers for the love that they bestow to this nation. 2 Chronicles chapter number 7 verse 14, I quote, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal their land." Father, let every challenge, hindrance, and obstacle of getting these prayers across to your children timelessly be removed. Lord, we say no to illegal sanction. This day we dedicate it in your hands, God. Everything that is going to be done at this place, God, we pray that illegal sanctions be removed. We become a free nation, breadbasket of Africa. Lord, be with every speaker today, everybody who is here. Father, all the proceedings, let them be led with you, my God. We pray for our president, E.T. Mnangagwa. Father, give him guidance, and the cabinet and the ministers, give them the guidance and courage to soldier on. You are faithful God. We trust in you. Lead us today and guide us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, sanctions have come about as a result of the misconception by the United States of America that there is human rights abuses in Zimbabwe. Their emergence followed a series of initiatives by the government of Zimbabwe to empower black people. These were the Agrarian Land Reform Program in the early 2000s, the 51-49% policy shareholding on companies, the denouncing of gay rights by the then President Comrade R.G. Mugabe, the 100% local content on ZBC, only but to mention a few. The United States of America perceived such initiatives by the government as human rights abuses, and as a result enacted what became known as the CITEZW Act. This gave provision for the sanctions on Zimbabwe. While it has been said that the sanctions are targeted on certain individuals and some companies, the impact of sanctions had far-reaching drawback on the entire nation of Zimbabwe. The ripple effects of this have been felt by some fellow African countries, particularly those that have known to have been once a breadbasket to the Southern Africa. The sanctions mean that Zimbabwe has no access to financial aid from prominent financial bodies such as the IMF and the World Bank. This has retarded the development of the nation as there is no funding for some sectors such as health, manufacturing, agriculture, mining, and others. This has exacerbated some socio-economic problems of the country such as unemployment, poverty, and criminality. On the other hand, the sanctions have directly contributed to the corruption, extortion, looting, and externalization of funds, among other evils. Sanctions have seen Zimbabwe being isolated from the world at large and thus cannot leverage itself on some other performing economies. Recently, the United States of America refused to accept diamonds from Zimbabwe and claimed that they were produced through forced labor. Clearly, this was an unjustified move by this leading economy and simply served to show that the United States of America is skeptical about Zimbabwe. Despite commendable efforts by His Excellency, President Emerson Mnangagwa, to make some social reforms such as scrapping the 51-49% policy and presenting Zimbabwe to the world as being open for business, the United States of America and its allies have turned a blind eye on this. Rather, they have chosen to maintain this position. It is therefore against this background that we as Bulawayo United Residents Associations commend the daring initiative by SADC to stand in solidarity with our beloved country Zimbabwe and set 25 October as an anti-sanctions campaign day for all member states. We are indeed honored by this humbling effort by our fellow sister countries. It surely shows that Africa is sovereign and united. Thus, as Bulawayo United Residents Association, we urge every resident of the City of Kings and the entire nation at large to participate wholeheartedly in this landmark game-changing event. It is our hope that this move will compel the United States and its allies to admit that sanctions are indeed wrong and not deserving for Zimbabwe, and remove them totally. On this day, we plead with Bulawayo Omuhle ngisithi mthwaka zomuhle kandaba matholesilo Bulawayo lembeko. We need to find each other as a people. We need to come together as a people of Zimbabwe and be united and speak with one voice and say these sanctions are causing a lot of harm to all of us as Zimbabweans. Bantwana beZimbabwe, can I take you down in memory line? Laba benu belikhona, labo benu elalikhona, ngicela livume ingoma nxa ngimemeza. Ngicela livume le ingoma. Bantu abami, bantu abami, bantu abami. Salanini ngothando, salanini ngokuhloniphana, salanini ngokuzwelana, salanini ngokubambisana. And we believe ukuthi together, united as a people of Zimbabwe, we can make this possible, and we call upon those who actually call for sanctions. But these sanctions are not doing any good for us as Zimbabweans. We call for the total removal of these sanctions. And I leave a word and say, united as a people of Zimbabwe we stand, divided we fall.
To every citizen of Zimbabwe, bigger thanks go to the Southern African Development Community who have stood up in solidarity and support for the innocent lives that are destroyed by economic sanctions. It is this sense of fraternity that is necessary among us states in this increasingly globalized world. Thank you. It cannot be overstated how much the economic sanctions that have been imposed on Zimbabwe have impacted the lives of ordinary Zimbabweans. In particular, innocent children who are made victims to this horror perpetuated by restrictions on economic development. Zimbabwe has immense potential in mining, science and technology, development, manpower and agriculture. According to the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development, Zimbabwe has over 4,000 recorded gold deposits. One would also be surprised to know that Zimbabwe holds the second highest platinum resource in the world on the Great Dyke, nearly 2.8 billion tons of PGMO. The United Nations Educational, Social and Cultural Organization reports that Zimbabwe has a literacy rate of upwards of 94%, one of the highest in Africa. I must add, the sanctions that have been imposed on the people of Zimbabwe have made all this seem like unimportant statistics, and that hurts. A lot has been said and still to be said about the nature of these sanctions and what they mean to Zimbabwe. The message that I carry on behalf of the Zimbabwe Junior Parliament is one of hope in the possibility of economic regeneration. Countless studies have been made by countless members of the academic fraternities on potential of our beloved nation. And they all point to the same conclusion. Zimbabwe has a potential to become not just a continental superpower, but a global phenomenon. But numerous agents have contributed to the stemming of economic growth in Zimbabwe and consequently the stemming of social and political development in our nation. And one of these factors is the sanctions that are forced onto us. The Zimbabwe child, however, being the greatest and most important stakeholder, suffers the most. When the economic development of every Zimbabwean is threatened, many lives are put at risk. People die, children lose their lives to children lose the right to education as a result of the economic underdevelopment that is perpetuated by these agents of economic devastation. Innocent lives are lost to this dangerous and illegal phenomenon, and a life cannot be restored. Think about the flash of brilliance in the child that signified a potential doctor, lawyer, engineer, artist, actor, or songwriter. It is destroyed by restrictions on economic development, and that is put simply unacceptable. We deplore in all forms any agents of this horrified phenomenon and stand behind the SADC in condemning it. On behalf of the Zimbabwe Junior Parliament and on behalf of every Zimbabwean child, and indeed anyone who supports the growth of Zimbabwe's economy, may once again extend my appreciation to the Southern African Development Community that has used its role as a regional forum to encourage support by member states of the Zimbabwean case. Zimbabwe must never be a basket case, and the SADC has taken up the duty of ensuring that this never happens. The globalization and international cooperation that is encouraged by the SADC is precisely the brotherhood that all nations should be holding. Economic sanctions threaten this phenomenon, and instead of creating a free, fair, and just world, creates divisions and fracture the relations that we seek to build. They slow down the process of economic regeneration, and in so doing speeds up the death of another children in a remote area somewhere. This child will become another statistic for the world to ponder over. And as the Zimbabwe Junior Parliament, we reject that idea. We believe in the power to change the country and indeed the world that lies in every child's hands is threatened by the economic sanctions. And until the future of that child is restored, we continue to march in solidarity with the government of Zimbabwe, saying no to sanctions, Sayala ma sanctions, Taramba ma sanctions.
What is the Hey, On 18 August 2019, the SADC heads of state and government meeting in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, took a bold and historic decision to declare October 25 as the day on which the entire SADC region would collectively voice its disapproval and condemnation of the illegal sanctions imposed on our country, Zimbabwe. The unjustified and oppressive illegal sanctions continue to cause untold suffering to the ordinary people of our great country. Their direct and indirect debilitating impacts have equally been felt by our neighbors. Today, we arise and collectively say, enough is enough. The illegal sanctions are an albatross to the development, well-being, and prosperity of the people of Zimbabwe. Sanctions must go. Remove them now. As we meet throughout the country on this landmark day, let it be known that we are united in purpose, resolve, and determination. Our friends and neighbors equally join our call. As a nation and people, we say, thank you, SADC, for standing by us and for speaking with one voice at the 74th session of the UN General Assembly. We also say thank you to the African Union and the progressive world for supporting us during these difficult years in the history of our country. Fellow Zimbabweans, distinguished guests, To you I say, thank you for turning out from all walks of life in such large numbers to mark this important day. Your active participation in all the activities that took place across the country building up to this event is an ample testimony that we are all united against the illegal and unjustified sanctions. We are indeed stronger together. Comrades, ladies and gentlemen, the dispossession of our land was one of the primary grievances which led us to wage the protracted liberation struggle for our country. Ours was a fight to reunite the land with its people and the people with their land, which promise we fulfilled during the liberation reform exercise. However, this had dire consequences and led to the imposition of the illegal and unjustifiable sanctions by the European Union and the United States of America. The Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act, ZIDERA, was passed in 2001, which saw our country being denied access to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank Development Finance and Credit Facilities. ZIDERA works in conjunction with the United States executive orders, which are renewed yearly and prohibit Zimbabwean entities and individuals from doing any business with the United States of America. Those who act in defiance to this law risk their financial transactions being blocked or penalized. In addition, travel bans and asset freezes have been imposed on a number of our citizens on frivolous allegations. Furthermore, ZIDERA has blocked Zimbabwe's assets to international credit markets, leading to the drying up of traditional sources of external finance. The country has not received any budget support from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank since the imposition of sanctions. As a result, the government has been forced to virtually operate from hand to mouth. The sanctions have also branded Zimbabwe's financial linkages with the rest of the world as high risk, thereby making our banks compelling targets for de-risking interventions by corresponding banks in the United States and Europe. To date, some of our local commercial banks have been slapped with staggering billions of dollars in fines. Fellow Zimbabweans, for nearly 20 years, we have lived under the unbearable weight of these illegal sanctions. Their impact on our daily lives is immeasurable and the consequences are dire. We know very well that the sanctions are neither smart nor targeted. For an example, 2 agricultural and infrastructural development banks were placed under sanctions, which saw them losing millions in lines of credit and reputation damage. State-owned companies and their subsidiary companies in the fertilizer industry also had their accounts frozen. Millions belonging to another chemical manufacturing company were also intercepted. Another state-owned company responsible for marketing the country's minerals lost revenue in similar circumstances. The list is indeed endless. Many of our people have over the years, lost loved ones in our hospitals due to the impact of sanctions on our healthy delivery system. Meanwhile, breadwinners have found themselves without jobs as industries and companies either downsize or close down. Those in the industrial sector and denied international credit to retool their businesses. Importers are asked to pay cash upfront, and our exporters are denied access into some markets. The manufacturing sector has seen the country losing most of its overseas international markets. The negative perception that has come with sanctions has impacted on foreign direct investment inflows. This, in turn, negatively affects our economic growth, balance of payment position, and employment levels. University students, the academia, and members of the media fraternity, among others, are denied opportunities to participate at international fora, which would work to broaden their skills and competencies. Every part of our country and sector of the economy has been affected by these sanctions. Like a cancer, the sanctions know neither color, nor creed, age, or gender, and affect the rich and vulnerable, as well as the young and old alike. It is clear and undeniable that sanctions were a reaction to the just and necessary act of redistributing our land. For the avoidance of doubt, we want to make it crystal clear that we shall never regret that necessary action, and our land reform program shall forever remain irreversible. We will not betray the many sons and daughters of our country who paid the supreme sacrifice fighting to liberate our country, our land. The act of imposing these ruinous sanctions was against the very grain, spirit, and letter of the United Nations Charter, and a gross violation of the core tenets of international law. They are illegal and unjustified, with no place in a modern and progressive world which exposes the equality of all nations. As the people of Zimbabwe, we cannot continue to have the right to have our collective fundamental human rights, dignity, and worth trampled upon as a result of the continued presence of this albatross of sanctions. This injustice of sanctions on our nation, our people, and on our economy cannot continue. Enough is enough. Remove sanctions now. Fellow Zimbabweans and distinguished guests, agriculture is the backbone of our economy, providing employment and income to our population, and also supplying raw materials for our manufacturing sector. Regrettably, sanctions have made it extremely difficult to access lines of credit and attract investment into this sector. The sanctions resulted in our inability to develop our irrigation potential, which could have a significant impact to national food security and agricultural growth. Without such essential investment, our country remains vulnerable to climate change. The market access for horticulture produce, sugar, beef, and cotton, among other crops, into lucrative European markets has also been affected. The mining sector has remained constrained due to lack of funding for recapitalization in the face of the continued sanctions regime. Of particular concern are the two minerals marketing companies which were designated by the United States and the EU. Assets belonging to these companies within the USA and the EU were frozen. The sanctions have continued to make it difficult for our diamond companies to market and trade at competitive prices. The sanctions have slowed the rate of implementation of capital projects in the energy sector, resulting in curtailed and reliable power infrastructure, insecure power supply, and an uncompetitive industrial sector. Oil importers now have to operate on upfront payment as credit facilities have since stopped, resulting in the erratic fuel supply. The bottom line has been the erratic supply of some basic products and the reduced quality of life of most of our people. Meanwhile, our road and rail infrastructure needs expansion, modernization, and refurbishment. The sanctions have directly perpetuated the cycle of poverty in the country and curtailed our momentum to achieve the sustainable development goals. There are far-reaching implications on SADC's ability to achieve its collective targets in the social, economic, and financial spheres cannot be ignored. This is the reality of these deleterious sanctions. No amount of propaganda can spin or sugarcoat this gruesome truth. The continued judgment and setting of utopian standards for Zimbabwe, which are never applied in any other jurisdiction, are callous, vindictive, and should not be allowed to continue. This is the basis on which we say enough is enough. Remove sanctions now. Fellow Zimbabweans and distinguished guests, we are a strong and proud people, a nation of warriors, a house of stone like the great Zimbabwe. We shall continue to stand fortified and strong, united by the spirits of those who paid the supreme sacrifice for this country, and emboldened by the resilience, perseverance, and hope of this generation, which is hoping for a better, brighter, happier, prosperous tomorrow. Forward ever, backward never. Today, we do not mourn, but we renew our resolve to succeed as a nation, despite the odds against us. Together in love, peace, unity, and harmony, Vision 2030 shall become a reality. My government will continue to take measures to mitigate against the impact of these illegal sanctions. To date, we have maximized revenue collection and ensured efficient utilization of scarce resources to boost critical areas. For an example, through programs such as Command Agriculture Program, introduction of the monocurrency regime to boost our country's competitiveness and the competitiveness of our manufacturing sector. Fighting the scourge of corruption, plugging revenue leakages, dealing with currency manipulation and artificially high prices caused by greedy cartels and businesses, creation and support of vibrant provincial economies and rural industry systems, resuscitation of our public transport sector, modernization and expansion of our health delivery system, as well as the qualitative improvement of our education sector with an increased focus on science, technology, and innovation. Protection of the vulnerable members of our society through the provision of social safety nets and support and empowerment of women, youth, and the disabled. Under the Second Republic, we, the people of Zimbabwe, on our own violation and for our own benefit, have taken a conscious and deliberate decision to reform our political and economic systems. We are opening up both our political and economic space under my leadership, constitutionalizing democracy, rule of law, transparency, accountability, and the unalienable human rights of all citizens shall continue to be the hallmark of our great country. The engagement and re-engagement policy, as well as the peaceful coexistence with all nations of the world, are now the key pillars of our foreign policy. The culture of dialogue, peaceful resolution of disputes, and the acceptance of divergent views will continue to be inculcated among our people. Today, we stand with our arms outstretched to all countries of the world for mutually beneficial partnerships that improve the lives of our people. Comrades, allow me to acknowledge and commend the European Union for taking some initial positive steps towards responding to our offer for dialogue and friendship. The EU has begun progressively removing the sanctions that it imposed on us, thereby allowing us to access some development assistance under the European Development Fund. Complementing these practical actions is an ongoing political dialogue to strengthen our bilateral cooperation. We call on the United States government to immediately and unconditionally remove the sanctions they have imposed on us for the sake of our children, living and unborn, our youth, women, the elderly, and our economy as a whole. We, the people of Zimbabwe, deserve to grow, modernize, industrialize, and prosper without the albatrosses of sanctions. The removal of these sanctions is just and indeed a fundamental human right for the people of Zimbabwe. To the ambassadors accredited to Zimbabwe, you live, work, and walk among us. These sanctions affect you too, and you have seen their far-reaching effects on our people. We invite you to stand with the ordinary people of Zimbabwe and report truthfully about the positive developments in our country. We urge you to carry our message of goodwill to your capitals and to pass on our call for them to respond to the new realities in our country and review their policies that do not serve the purpose of progressive cooperation with Zimbabwe. A Zimbabwe free from sanctions is a better and more valuable partner to you all. We remain resolute and enduring in our commitment to dialogue, friendship, and mutually beneficial partnerships. Allow me to extend special gratitude to SADC member states for their unprecedented pledge of solidarity with Zimbabwe, which led to this historic day. We are equally appreciative of all the warm messages of solidarity expressed here today during the earlier addresses. Fellow Zimbabweans and distinguished guests, let me reiterate by my gratitude to you, the people of our great country, for your sacrifices and unwavering support you have given to me and my government during these challenging times. Your steadfastness and patriotism are not in vain. We may be hard pressed on every side, but we are not crushed. Let us not despair. Let us arise and shine and play our respective roles in the various sectors of the economy. We must roll up our sleeves and work productivity, and more productivity in every sector: agriculture, mining, manufacturing, tourism, small and medium enterprises, and all others. The Lord shall surely bless the works of our hands. Let us continue to preach peace, 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 love, and harmony. United we stand, divided we fall. Viva SADC solidarity! Viva African solidarity! Viva unity against the sanctions! Forward ever, backward never. God bless you all. God bless Zimbabwe. I thank you.